So the basics with interviews is that you must be very professional. From the first time you receive that phone call, if you're driving, let the recruiter know you're driving, pull over, get to a quiet environment. I also think we should discuss documentation in regards to paperwork. Are you legal to work in the United States? That's very important. If you have the social security, no matter any other status, that's what you should use in your presentation. I'm referring to those who may having just work permit. You don't need to tell anybody you have a work permit. Those with work permit, it comes with social security. Am I correct? Can somebody correct me on that? Or you can have a work permit without a social security?
No, sir.
So it comes with one, correct?
You have to have a social security, then work permit.
All right, good. So when you're talking with any recruiter, let them, because work permit is taking you towards, that's the pathway to green card. So your address is you possess a green card. Because you start telling them, some of these recruiters come from India, they don't even understand how things happen here in the United States. So it gets them very confused. And that has jeopardized some people's chances in getting jobs because of just making that statement that I have the work permit, it was, and explaining a lot of things. All what they need to justify your being legal to work in the United States is social security. So let them know you do possess, you're eligible to work in the United States, and this is your social security number. Full stop. So that's very important.
You give it to them, sir?
They always last 4 digits. So, okay,
yes, sir. Okay.
Your last 4. You should never give the full access to anyone. And you guys know you can always ask me those questions. You can always send a text. I believe I'm responsive on the phone. Am I correct? So in any of those scenarios, text me and get clarifications. Even when it comes to paperwork, how do I feel this, or how do I respond to this question? Please don't jeopardize scenarios that may come only once. It's very important. So yes, so when that call comes in, you must be very ready. You must be professional. If you are at home, get to a quiet room and and continue the conversation. If you're in the kitchen, turn off the fire, turn off the stove, and tell them, give me a minute. And so you want to, because evaluation starts right from there. It is your approach that will make the recruiters know that, okay, let me move this candidate to maybe the next level or the next interviewer, so that you can move forward. So it's very important to make sure that when you pick up that call and you sound the way you're supposed to sound. This session is not going to last up to 2 hours, so we're going to be very interactive, take questions and consents as we go through. So any question at this moment? For those of you interviewing,
no problem.
Any concern with this introduction when it comes to call, paperwork, work permit, what details they're asking, what should you give, what you should not give? Some people will ask for a copy of your driver's license. It's okay. Some people will ask a copy of your green card. Don't give that. It's free fluctuating. Last 4 digits of your SSS, that's correct. That's okay. You can give that. You can tell them, you're not comfortable giving your copy of your green card, but you can provide that if an offer is made to you. So just follow your intuition. So sometimes it's okay, it just depends. But if you're in doubt, reach out to me. We're always available to provide that. All right, so let's proceed with regards to that. If there are not more questions. As we have always discussed, introducing yourself is a very strong tool. They say first impression is very good. And so the introduction is a very tough tool. No matter how an interview look like, when you introduce yourself with a positive way, you already set a pace, you already set a standard for which the interviewers are going to follow. And we have said several times, make sure your introduction covers all topics that we have touched. it could just be single sentences describing those topics. If you cannot, follow a chronological style of presentation, or it could be, handling those topics that you think you're very good at. But make sure I prefer an introduction that is lengthy of about maybe 3 or 4 or 5 minutes, then and you touching more topics than someone who will do me an introduction for 5 minutes and it ends with networking. Every other thing after networking, you've not touched it. Now, I prefer because you're giving an overall picture. So that introduction should be broad, it should be wide. Is that understood?
Yes.
Good. So with regards to you guys, give me a minute. Let me step out of the right back. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
So with regards to we're talking about introduction, and so we're going to make this session very interactive. Since today is day one, I'm going to be doing all the talking. So get yourself ready for next Sunday. It's such so that we can, refresh and get our mindset ready and get back to interviews and you know get those jobs. That's our objective. We want to see everyone working. We're also setting up a DevOps session which will be commencing in October. So by the time we round up with this batch, maybe they should be joining that session also. So we'll see. So we're talking about an introduction, which we said is supposed to be very strong. Tell us about yourself. That's the icebreaker that they will always ask. And we said, make sure the more the lengthy or the wide you can cover all topics, that's the better. So we are referring to, talking about server installations and infrastructure, file system structure, VI editors, creating tables, creating links, user groups. You could mention commands that you use. Talk about access control list, ACL, as we have said, very important. Have any of you used ACL at the job? We saw someone, you guys follow that conversation over at the Global Forum, correct? Did you guys follow up the conversation at the Global Forum? I think it was from Alan, who needed a command on ACL to set up restrictions. So those are the kind of scenarios. Those are the kind of scenarios that will come out at work, and I can tell you, it's a big thing to use ACL. It gives you the ability to set permission restrictions for individuals and for groups. So very important. Talks about processes, and would mention commands that like top command that are used for processes. Talk about cron jobs, bootstrapping, run levels, drop password, repositories, NFS. Talk about logical volumes. And so those are things, talk about Ansible. So those tools, Nagios, you must bring all of these line up into your introduction, because it is from those things you have mentioned that they will start asking you questions. And somebody will say, I heard you talking about LVM. Can you explain to us what's your experience or any work that you have done around this tool? So that's where the conversation opens. So you must be strong in all those things. Are we hearing these things for the first time, or these are things we have covered?
We've covered that.
Good. So we are doing revision, we are prepping your brain, and we are getting you guys. I understand, not everybody may have been revising, but take this as an opportunity. We are revising, and go back, look through your summary notes, and get back on board. So with that kind of intro is very important. Some of you can even expatiate with regards to talking about server installation. So let's say after your intro, somebody may wants to narrow down to talk to you about how do you guys perform installation and configuration in your environment. Now, you have to know that every environment is unique. That's your strength. So this new job that you are going into, that you have never worked with them, so you don't need to know their environment. You don't need to explain how the environment looks like. You want to explain how your environment where you are coming from looks like, which is dynamic tech. Am I correct? So what we are instituting here is how dynamic tech looks like. Now, the way it looks like, that's how they'll now understand, okay, he or she is coming from a busy environment. We are also busy, so it means he can fit. If he's coming from it, if he or she is coming from a less busy environment, we are too busy. Okay, it means he has a lot to learn to catch up. If he's coming from a very busy environment and we are not too busy, it means he's up there and then he needs to come down to our level. So you must be able to, don't try to mimic them, just explain your own environment. So we're talking about server installation and configuration. You should be able to talk about building servers from scratch, bare metal, because remember we say our intro states that our experience is from infrastructure wise, which means we are not just dealing with virtualized platforms like VMware, but we have built servers from scratch because that's a replica of a virtual machine. Is that correct? So have any of you built physical servers in here so that we can find out if it's a replica as a virtual machine or much different? Mr. Kimake, can you share with us?
Yes, sir. Yes, I've built physical servers. It's practically the same thing. It's practically the same thing at the level of the OS. But the only difference that I might say is at the level of system configuration. That's not OS, but like configuring maybe the drives in the system. Because once you start building a physical server, it's obvious that there will be some sort of backups because that physical server might have around 5 or 6 different hard disks and the like. And
Yes, sure.
you will have to maybe do a RAID, which is just like multiplying. Let's say you can do a multiplication of the hard drives. Maybe the server has 10 terabyte, you will do 4 terabyte, you use 4 terabyte and use 6 terabyte for replication, so that
Yes, so
even if a
yes,
hard drive gets bad.
let me just come in there. So these are the kind of scenarios that are very unique with environments. So they are like what Kimaka is explaining, that's for that environment. So what we are dealing with is exactly a scenario whereby you are building not a customized server, but a server that can be used regularly. So you will definitely have the same structure that you have done in VirtualBox. Bertrand, you're welcome. So
Yeah, it's same structure.
yeah,
Everything is the same.
Yeah, we are making sure that everybody has the capability to record. So that I'm making you a co-host, you can record from your end. However, this recording will be, I'm also recording, you can request for it by sending an email and that will be sent to you. Yes, so as I was saying, our when we say our experience is from infrastructure wise, you want to build that picture, let them know that you have been at the data center environment. Does that make sense? Because there are people whose experience is only on virtualized platform. For example, building servers on VMware, which you guys are very familiar with. Building servers on VirtualBox, which nobody uses at work, very few. Or other virtualized platforms. We currently people who are working on AWS platforms, that's still virtualization. So you must, so when you use that word infrastructure wise, you want to, it's because you're giving them that impression. Know that your experience is coming from a data center structure. Does that make sense? So when you make that explanation, you can go further by talking about server hardening, because we don't just build servers, vanilla servers that are partitioned, by the systems. We build customized servers that we determine how the hard disks will be partitioned. We also make sure we harden those servers by making sure that not there's not direct root logging. Also, unnecessary ports are not open. Only required packages are running and services that are enabled. So that's how you tighten the security to give more, to make that server as secure as possible. Because you agree with me, no matter how sophisticated a server is, if you leave it lying outside your driveway, that server is still not secure, correct? So it must be in a centralized, close, isolated location, which is a data center, as the first level of security. So when we talk about handling a server, it's in two forms. The first level of security, which is the physical environment, and then software-wise, which is what are the services running on the server. So that's your approach you want to discuss when it comes to infrastructure, explaining your experience as being at the level of data center, and or your experience when it comes to installation and configuration. Any question or concern, or you want to join or add something? All right, so let's proceed. So that's the introduction. That's your introduction when it comes to anybody had a question in regards to installation and configuration. How do you build servers? So that way we can respond practically.
For me, it was not direct, but they asked me what kind of servers have I been using. So I think I reached out to you after the interview.
Oh, okay. So very good question. And so, what kind of servers have you been using? It's a very, you can get very confused. But if you start up a service on a server, you can call that server. For example, if you have Nagios running on a server, that's a Nagios server that you have built. So you can call any service. For example, if we have an authentication server whereby you need to log into that server before you log to any environment, we can call that server to be a jump server or a bastion host. So if you have Apache running on the server, you can call that server an Apache server. So if you're asked the question, what kind of servers have you built? You can, just by enabling HTTPD on the server, that's Apache running on the server. So you can say that's an Apache server, that's an NTP, Network Time Protocol server, if you have set that up. And so you can also say SFT. So all the servers that we built, or various applications that we installed on different servers, you can use those names of those applications to refer to those servers as the kind of servers that you have worked on. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. But I think he was saying that in reference to like the physical server, what the name was.
Oh, so you're talking about manufacturers of physical servers.
Yeah, that was
Good.
his question.
So I'm going to write that down in the chat, and all of you have it on your resumes. If you look at the first line of your resumes where it says operating systems, there's something you said, you see Solaris, Sun Solaris, IBM. These are manufacturers of physical servers. HP. You also have, let me see, Oracle. Now, if you look at your resume, let me see if I can pull up one here. All right. Am I sharing my screen?
No. Yeah.
All right, good. So if you look, when you see where it says hardware, can you guys see that? All of you have this in your resume. You may not have all of these names. You should have at least 3. SunSpark. These are these are companies that and various brand of servers that respond to that question that Hannah just asked. You have IBM Blades, SunSpark ST2, M5000, IBM. So I'm gonna put this on the chart. So when you ask like what kind of physical servers have you worked with, these are names or versions of, of physical servers that are as per their manufacturers. So that should be able to Hannah, do you have this on your resume? You should have a portion that says hardware and at
No,
least
sir, but
2
after
or
this
3.
video, I'll add it. I didn't have it, sir.
You didn't have nothing that says hardware?
No, sir.
No, you should check. Check. You should have something that talks about Spark, not Spark, IBM. Should have something that talks about IBM and Sun Solaris. Check and let me know, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, good. So when it comes to that, that's the kind of explanations you want to give when it comes to physical servers, because they want to know, especially when you say, data center experience, it means you have touched physical servers and they would like to know, what kind of brand are you used to? Have you been dealing with? So it's very important. And so next on our list is describing your environment. So after you must have presented yourself or introduced yourself, most likely they want to find out, the environment you are coming from, how are things being performed, and or how, describe your environment. So it's very imperative and important that you discuss how your system is set up. And as I said earlier, you need to take pride of your environment where you're coming from. It must not, no two environments are the same, but they must be very similar in respect to dev test and prod environment. Now, there are some companies that have what we call QA. There are some companies that have pre-prod. So QA is just another form of test environment where applications can be tested before they go to production. Do we all agree that production is the final endpoint of every product application, correct?
Yes.
And if I tell you there's pre-prod and there's prod, you should be able to explain to me the meaning of pre-prod. Am I correct?
Yes.
It simply
So
means
pre-prod is equivalent to
test.
test.
So some environments can call it pre-prod, while some people are calling it test. But just the word that pre-prod means it proceeds before production will tell you that this is where applications, are either stationed before they move to production.
Mhm.
So these are some of the similarities that, goes around every environment. And so you want to state those three different environments that you are used to and characteristics that goes with it. For example, we said dev is it's like a playground. It's an environment whereby everybody have access. Everything can be performed. Everybody can do whatever they want, as opposed to production. We also have, as I said, QA or test. The same thing describes both environment. Our test environment is where products are not satisfied, or they're moved to test or back to dev for testing until the final product is now deployed to production. Production is restricted, and very few people do have access. Only the system admins, to be more precise. Those of you in the field, is that what you have experienced? Where's the 10? Is he
Yeah,
still here?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah. So Belton,
So
is that what you have experienced?
yes, yeah, with in my current company, actually system admins have control and access across all three environments.
All right, good. Yes. So that's what we learned. Is that true?
That is what we learned. So I guess for the people that are working, could you maybe give us, just like Mr. Oben did, like examples of things you do in each environment?
Yeah, good question.
Uh, so what we do in each environment, we have the dev, test, and production. And dev, the dev environment, in my environment, the dev environment is just an environment where you can go develop and design applications. You can develop and design applications or build new applications. For example, if a tool comes out that your company wants to use, or your company wants to contact a vendor for an application, you, the system admin, you are responsible for building that application. So you will do all your design in the lab. Let's say, for example, it's installing Nagios. You start by designing your Nagios in the lab, or another application that is customer facing. Let's say it is Zelle, right? You start by installing that Zelle in the dev environment and facing all the issues, writing documentation. That's the level where you write the documentation and you get everything ready. Then you build with the documentation that you've gotten from the dev environment, you build an exact copy in the test environment, which now in the test, at the level of the test environment, you might try it out with maybe external facing customers, but not actually like you simulate customers at the level of the test, you simulate customers testing the product. Okay, maybe it's router to home. You might have your one modem or two modems in the lab. Then you actually send maybe something, or you might install Zelle in like 5 or 6 phones. Then you actually send the application, have users contact the application, and you see how it's reacting. Once all the testing is done and approved that it can go to production, you build an exact same copy of what is in the test in production. That so you are transferring it over to production. Transferring it over to production does not mean that you're taking out everything. No, you allow the one in the test, use the documentation to build a prod version, which is identical, like a twin to the one in test. Now, this is done so that whatever thing you want to change in the production server, since you deploy production already to customer, you first of all change it in test and see how it reacts in test. If it reacts fine in test, then it shall react fine in production because they are twin servers. They have the exact same setting, the storage and the thing, RAM and the like. The CPU might be a little bit lesser, but function-wise, they function the same. So now, if you want to do upgrades to the application, you go to the one in the test. You put the upgrade there. You see how the test behaves. Then if the test behaves well, you send it to production. Then you do production also, the exact same thing that you did in test. But
Very good.
if the test does not behave well, then you don't.
Perfect example, Kimake. Thank you very much there. Did you understand?
I did.
So Well, let me just throw a little light. So let's say they ask you to build a Nagios server. You have to first of all do that in dev, document it, replicate that in tests, and then before you move into production. The reason being that production is very delicate. You can't just go first things in production. That's why we say dev is like a playground. That's where you do everything. Now, secondly, another example, let's say they say set up an NFS. Because the whole environment is uniform. Whatever you have in dev, that's what is replicated in test, that's what in production. Just like patching, do we start in production?
No.
So everything follows that chronology. Dev, in case everything went well, move to test, and then to production. So whatever they ask you to do, they'll always, you must carry that mentality in mind that a dev environment is where everything begins, so that in case of any, just like Kemaka said, okay, now Nagios is already running. They say add some other, we need to add some notifications that we are not getting. You're not just going to jump into production to do that notification. You have to first of all test it in test, see that the notification is going through emails, and then you now move to production. Make sense?
So this is for absolutely everything that we do.
Everything.
Every single change that we make.
That's why we said configuration change management plan is to keep the whole environment in sync. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense.
Perfect.
They also do that to track what changes have been put in production, so that
now
if anything is happening to production, they can roll back. What did you do?
Right.
Perfect.
Now, what do you use in terms of documentation while it's moving through the process?
There are many tools, Wiki. Some people are not set up. You can even do normal web documents, and they have a place where, some people have SharePoint, where you can go do all those documentation, so that even if you're absent, other colleagues can go there and reference.
Okay. Now, let me ask you a question. So let's say same way how they would say in the interview, describe your environment for me. I know what it means, but can you say it in an interview way? Like right now you're in the interview and they say, okay, can you describe your environment for me?
Yeah, we have tackled that, correct? So we said the formula is you must mention these three spheres of environment, dev, test, and production. You must also mention the characteristics of these three environments. For example, our dev environment is accessible to everyone. Everybody has access. This is where codes are developed. This is where we make sure applications are first of all installed, configured, or set up before we move them to the test environment. At the level of our test environment, we now test whatever has been set up in dev, and then see the replication in test, and it's satisfactory. That's when we move to production. Our production environment is very restricted. Only system admins do have access. Does that make sense? We also said that you must also include activities that goes with environment, for example, patching. So in this conversation, it's good for you to also mention the fact that in this dev environment, we do patch this environment during the week. This is because, it is less risky, even if the server goes down, it's not too dangerous as compared to production. Our test environments, so if we apply a patch and it's successful, then we now move that to test. And our production environment is always reserved for weekends, reason being that it's less traffic, people are not logging to servers, and in case something goes wrong, peradventure. So there are situations that although you have gone through production and test, gone through dev and test, production can still break. So we have the weekends, Saturday and Sunday, to do rectification before people start coming back to work or to the office on Monday. So whenever they're talking about describing an environment, we tie that description to patching and to characteristics that explains those different environments. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And remember, we also tie the fact that number of servers that the environment comprises and the team members. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Any addition?
Yeah, Mr. Oben, just to shed more light, as you made
Sure.
mention of
Go ahead.
the fact that if the environment breaks down, you can also mention of the fact that you guys do like incremental backups and full backups. Like in my environment, we do incremental backups about 5 days a week, Monday, Tuesday through Friday, 2 a.m. And we run an automatic full backup on Saturdays. So
Good. That's another good point, adding backups in describing your environment. So, well, who remembers what is an incremental backup? Do you remember we touched backup when we were discussing recovery point objectives and recovery time objectives, correct?
Yeah, but I forgot.
That's all right. We said full backups, just like Burton mentions, comes up Friday midnight, which is Friday breaking Saturday. So incremental backups, we back up every aspect of things that have changed. So let's say we added a user today, call user Ella to a server, and we run that backup today, and that its password has been backed up. And tomorrow, nothing has changed on that its password. If we run incremental backup again, it's not gonna back up anything because nothing has changed. So incremental simply backs up things that have been modified. While
Basically,
full
recent changes.
recent changes, correct? While full backups run on Friday. So that's a good way to, thank you very much, Bertrand. So we can add that to our description. So as we said, environment, talk about dev tests, talk about characteristics that describes those environment, talk about patching, and you talk about backups. Make sense?
I'm sorry, this is for which environment again, Dev?
No, you're describing your whole environment.
Okay, so the backups are done in all three?
Perfect. Good question. Who wants to answer that question?
Your turn.
Backup is mostly, yes, go
yeah,
ahead, Bertrand.
Yeah, back in my environment, we do backups only for the prod environment.
Only for
Correct.
prod.
Yeah,
Okay.
only
Yes.
for prod. Since the test environment, you can break and make anything in there. So the most important, so if the system goes down, what you want to require, what you want to get back is a prod environment. You don't want to get back the test environment.
Gotcha.
Perfect. And
Thank you.
anything that
in
is
mine,
backup, yes, go ahead.
in mine, we do back up everything like fraud, lab, test, because most developers and the like, they have their own user accounts in the system and they build their codes in the system. Like though they don't have super user privileges, no, they don't. So if they want to do anything that needs super user privilege, then you need to be there with them to do it. Else they will not be able to do it. So when we take backups of all the server. We have an external vendor that we use for backups. So we use an external vendor for backups. I have never backed up the server at work because we have an external vendor that does our backups, but they do like the whole environment.
Now, remember backups can be simply making up a copy of a file. Does that make sense? But when we talk about incremental and full backups, these are automation tools that run backups. Most of you, we have what we call Commvault on your resume. It's very important. So yes, those explanations are very, so as we said, every environment is unique. Some environments are doing backups on production, while others are doing on all three tiers.
Okay,
So,
what did you just mention that is used for backup? You said something Commvault?
Commvault, I'll drop it at the chat.
That's what is used for, that's the application used to do backups?
That's the most widely used in the market now.
Okay. Commvault, okay.
Yes. Any other questions? So for those of you joining late, we were talking about describing your environment. We have discussed about you introducing yourself and why is it important for you to, mention all topics that we have covered. And then we move into describing your environment. And so we're giving examples for those who are already in the field and the differences. And we saying, when you talk about your environment, it's important that you mention the three tiers of the environment and also characteristics, and mention the fact that, you do patching and the ways patching patching is being performed in this different environment. And we're adding backups to that also, which is very important. Okay. Any question in regards to that? So for those who are interviewed or who are still interviewed or who are already working, have you had any questions around this field of things we have touched so we can be more direct in handle them? If you can remember any of them, that'll be great.
I understand we touched patching a little bit here, but I was asked how to revert back to the old kernel if a patch doesn't work.
And you don't know that?
I explained it, but I'm just bringing the question for somebody else who may be interviewing.
Oh, okay, good. That's nice. That's nice. I'm happy you said so because I would have been disappointed. Now, those are things that must, and those are kind of questions they want to find out if you have really touched the system, if you have been in a working environment, and how do you revert back to a previous kernel? Is there anybody who does not have an idea how to perform that?
Me.
Okay, that's fine. Let me see if we.
I'm sure it's on my notes, but it would be nice to just touch on it.
Sure, that's fine. That's why we're doing revision. So. So when it comes to, I'm going to handle this so that we can go elaborately because I want to touch on both 3 operating systems. I want us to do it for Red Hat 6, Red Hat 7, and Red Hat 8 because the boot, the configuration file for the boot configuration file is in different locations for these 3 operating systems. However, they're all in boot_conf, where we can set up, this file can be used to set up boot, the grub password, and also can be used to revert back, boot back to the old kernel, just like Hannah said. Now, if you veer into this file, I don't have any system running. You should be able to see a default value that says 0. Does that bring any light to your memory? Anyway, when we go into
A little.
good. When we go into detail, when we do patching, we should be able to cover that. But when you change that default value, when it says 0 in that configuration file, you're telling the system to boot to the most current kernel. Because whenever you patch a system, the new kernel is installed and it stays in that file. And then when you patch the other week or the other month, the 3rd kernel, any update, if there's one, comes in, the oldest one disappears. So that file always contains 2 kernels in existence. There are some systems that it keeps them for 5 kernels in. So you can so when you change that default value to 1, from 0 to 1, you're telling that system to put back to the old kernel. Does that make sense? So we'll look into that configuration file and see that changes and see that existence of 2 kernels. And actually, I don't know which of my system have those patch things now, but we'll tackle that as a whole project when it comes to patching. But to respond directly is to be able to change the default value in the boot.conf file from 0 to 1, and that system will boot back to the old kernel. Is that correct, Hannah?
Yes, sir. And he actually asked me about that file. I should tell him the file that I'm going to go into.
Correct. They'll always ask, and that's why I want to tackle it on both Red Hat 8, Red Hat 7, and Red Hat 6.
Mr. Oben, can you just say that sentence one more time? I'm typing it. To be able to
Sure.
change the
I drop it on the chat.
Mhm.
So this should be for Red Hat 6. Put underscore Kafka. Default equals 1. So the value there is always 0. When you change to 1, you're telling the system to boot to the old kernel. This one other important question that usually comes around this area of patching is, and the question goes like this: what will you prefer to do? Will you prefer to install a new kernel or upgrade an existing kernel? So let me write that question on the chat. Install a new kernel or upgrade an existing kernel. Has anybody come across that question? Now, the response is you prefer to install a new kernel because when you install a new kernel, it keeps the old kernel available so that you can reboot back to using the old kernel by changing that default value in case there's any catastrophe, in case anything goes wrong. But if you upgrade an existing kernel, there's no room to make the adjustment in case there's any you face any issue. There's no second kernel available for you. So best practice is always install a new kernel so that the old one can be as a backup. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so whenever they're dealing with kernel patching and reverting to old kernel, this question is usually follows up. What will you prefer to do? Install or a new kernel or upgrade an existing kernel? Very important. Any other questions?
I think I was also asked to tell them the command that I'll use to see the kernel.
To see whether the kernel has been updated.
To see the kernel that I'm using. I think it is it cat etc release?
No, I'm putting it
Red Hat release.
uname-a.
Uname-a.
There are a couple of commands depending on what they want to hear. So you may say uname-a, they say no. So that I'm gonna put a couple of things so that it helps you with that.
Okay, sir. But I think I messed up on that because I said cat etc Red Hat release.
That will show you the OS version that you're working. And uname-a can also work for some, depending on what they want to see. Uname-a will show you the current kernel you are using. What was the question again?
They said I should hold on. They said I should tell them the command I'll use to see the kernel that I'm using.
Okay, uname-a
the kernel version.
Correct. Uname-a will work. Yum last. Oh, it's supposed to be 1 month, so it's yum last kernel. We'll show you the last kernel that was updated that is running your system. So you can use those two in case because sometimes some people are just reading questions that have been given to them, and so that way, if the interviewer is not expecting to hear uname-a, definitely they'll hear yum last kernel. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Oben?
Yes, sir.
in that question, the uname dash v specifically gives you the version you're using. Is it not more appropriate to use the dash to talk about the uname dash v than to give the just to talk about the dash a, because the dash v gives specifically the version that you're working on?
That's okay. It's any of them will project that response. So you're good to use V or
So
A.
uname dash V would do what instead?
It's just like uname dash V will show you just what is responsible to the kernel.
Okay. And Mr. Oben, can you just go back to the question where they said, would you prefer to install a new kernel or upgrade the existing kernel? And you
Yes.
said you would always prefer to upgrade the existing kernel because
You prefer to, what did we say? We don't upgrade. We say we install a new kernel so as to have the older kernel serve as a backup. So we do not upgrade an existing kernel. It's best practice is install a new kernel so that the older kernel can still be in existence and serve as a backup for your system.
okay.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so we do not
Yeah, like,
upgrade.
yeah, and throwing more light into that, Mr. Owen, you just mentioned, like Mr. Owen is saying, we do not upgrade. I think um, breaking it down a little bit, just upgrading a
Mm-hmm.
kernel and installing a new kernel. Installing a new kernel when you use a yum update, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yum upgrade. Those are two different things. I
Mm-hmm.
think when you use a yum upgrade, it upgrades the current kernel, but when you use the yum update command, it installs a new kernel with it installs a new kernel and keeps the other kernel there.
Okay, so which
So,
one installs the new one?
so,
Update or upgrade?
Update.
so remember we have used the command yum update. Is that correct?
Yeah.
That's basically the major command for patching.
Mm-hmm.
So that will install a new, I'm writing on the chat. Why upgrade? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Oben,
Yes, sir.
under what circumstances can we then upgrade the kernel then?
Very rare circumstances. Upgrade is usually used for packages. So we can do yum upgrade, many other packages, not for kernel.
It's just a command to stay away from it.
Correct. That's why we put bad practice right there. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
So, Mr. Emmanuel, you join us late. Everybody is recording. However, I'll still have the recording also. You can send
Yeah,
me.
I lost it. I had a very bad day, so I just realized when I looked at my phone that there was a course going on, and so I just started.
Yeah, you
My
can
apologies. My
text
apologies.
your email and we'll send you the recording. No problem.
So, but you should have my email now.
I'm just not
Just type my name on
active.
your email. Go to all your
Uh,
emails. Just type my name there. You see my name. I will show up.
Mr. Emmanuel, there's a big list. I'm gonna forward this email. Do me a favor.
Okay.
So
All right.
that I just need to check your
I'll
WhatsApp and I'll pick
okay.
it
I'll
from
send
there.
to you then. I'll send to you.
I have all your emails, everybody. I'm just trying to reduce the workload on my end. All right, so we're almost running off for the night, but I'm trying to make sure these interview preps are very short and interactive so that because it's gonna go maybe to Christmas. We need everybody to work. So we need people to come with their questions as the interview. We need to be able to refresh supervision and all of that. So we don't want to make it lengthy and knowing fully well that this is Sunday, just zoom in with an hour and spend with us and we're back. So we're logging in again next week and we're going to be handling projects And thank you for joining Kemaka. We have people here already in the field. The trend is here. They'll tell. So please bring in questions. Those who are interviewing also, copy your questions and bring them in. Let's brainstorm and work on them in this session. And any other thing before I run off for the night? That way I don't take much of your time. Those of you who don't have, please, we need your resumes online. And so let's make use of these few remaining months for that interviews and hiring is still going on so that we can, you know.
And change your name if you have a nosy manager.
Use abbreviations on your LinkedIn. That's fine. Use your middle name, abbreviate every other thing. So we need to get this done, okay? All right, good night, everyone. And let's meet up again next Sunday, same time, same rendezvous.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.